Law's intro. When a grandmaster jokingly asked a humble cleaner to face him in chess, he figured it would be light amusement for his affluent crowd. What unfolded next didn't merely hush the gathering. It demolished every notion he held about dominance, dignity, and the genuine essence of chess. Crystal chandeliers threw flickering shadows over the marble tiles, while Dolly carefully wiped every piece on the lavish boards. The elite chess club buzzed with its typical evening rhythm. Rich members debated tactics over costly vintages, their words bouncing off the vaulted ceiling with the self-assurance only wealth can purchase. For 3 years, Dolly had blended into the background here. The chess club? She had seen these patrons turn chess into a badge of prestige, flashing ratings and memberships like fine gems. They dropped famous opponents they'd shaken hands with, boasted about pricey lessons, and sneered at anyone outside their privileged clique. Handle that board gently. It costs more than you earn in a month. One patron had sneered at her once. Dolly had merely nodded and kept polishing, aware that chess's true splendor had zero connection to the cost of its pieces. She had fallen in love with the game in her grandmother's cramped flat, using a cheap plastic set bought from a local shop. Her grandmother had shown her that chess revolved around intellect, not income, around planning, endurance, and honoring your rival. Yet this venue had twisted her cherished pastime into something repulsive. That was precisely why she had accepted the position. Day after day, she observed them ridicule everything she treasured in chess. They dissected matches they scarcely grasped, mocked decisions by legends far above them, and worst of all, rejected anyone who failed their rigid criteria for worthy players. The staff shouldn't even lay a finger on the pieces. She once overheard a woman declare, "They probably don't realize how fragile they are." That day, like every other, Dolly swallowed her words. Inside, though, a flame smoldered. She grasped chess tactics more deeply than most in that room could ever imagine. She had pored over the game obsessively, not for prizes or rankings, but out of pure devotion to its artistry. Vassars, the charity exhibition, tonight carried a different charge. Excitement hung heavy as members readied themselves for the monthly charity showcase. The ritual never varied. Affluent donors assembled to view exhibitions and pat themselves on the back for tax-deductible generosity. While Dolly positioned seats around the central display table, she spotted him swaggering through the space as if he owned it. Marcus Cromwell, the club's star attraction, a certified grandmaster who had arrived 2 years earlier and instantly become their prized ornament. Marcus embodied everything Dolly loathed in today's chess scene: haughty, patronizing, fixated on his own fame. She had watched him crush lesser opponents for fun, cracking jokes about their blunders while fawning spectators chuckled. "Chess demands intellect," he had proclaimed in a talk. "Certain minds simply lack the wiring to master it. Not their fault. Biology." The smug grin and icy stare that accompanied the remark had churned Dolly's gut. Yet she had stayed on her knees, scrubbing, unseen as ever. Tonight Marcus wore his customary tailored suit, and that unbearable smirk hinting he was about to amuse himself at another's cost. He had no clue his beloved game was poised to deliver a lesson in modesty no fortune could purchase. The charity gala was in full bloom when Marcus launched into his favorite diversion. Public shaming masked as spectacle. Donors had already given lavishly. Wine poured freely, and the mood was primed for what he billed as an instructive display. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus declared, his voice slicing through the murmur like a blade. "Tonight let's enjoy a spontaneous tutorial on the tiers of chess excellence." The audience clustered closer, eyes gleaming with expectation. They adored Marcus in performance mode, especially when he was about to flaunt his dominance over some hapless target. Dolly kept wiping nearby surfaces, striving to stay unnoticed, but a certain edge in Marcus's voice made her freeze. She recognized that cadence. It signaled someone was about to be ridiculed for the crowd's delight. You see, Marcus went on, sweeping an arm theatrically, chess has natural pecking orders, just like society. Some are destined to reign as masters. Others, he scanned the room with dramatic flair, fulfill different roles. His stare locked on Dolly, and a vicious grin oozed across his face. You there, the cleaning woman. What's your name? Every face swiveled toward her. She felt their gazes like needles, yet kept her face blank. Dolly, sir? Perfect. Tell me, Dolly, can you play chess? The question dangled like a snare. Dolly sensed the crowd's glee swelling. They were already savoring the impending embarrassment. I know the rules, sir, she answered softly. Marcus clapped with theatrical glee. Splendid! Ladies and gentlemen, shall we let Dolly try her hand against a true Grandmaster? Purely for amusement, naturally. The audience murmured assent. Some tittered at the ridiculous idea. A few hushed remarks drifted to Dolly's ears. This will be over fast. The poor dear has no idea. Oh, I couldn't, sir. Dolly objected, acting the role flawlessly. I'm on duty, and I'm sure you have more pressing. Nonsense? Marcus cut in, savoring the moment. Count it as part of the evening's program. Besides, it will illustrate for everyone the gulf between innate genius and, well, eagerness. The crowd roared at the veiled barb. Marcus motioned to the lavish central table, its costly pieces glowing beneath the chandelier. Come, don't be timid. I'll take it easy. We'll wrap up quickly. I wouldn't dream of delaying your chores. More laughter rippled outward. Dolly glanced at their eager, smug faces, faces that viewed her as mere comic relief, a prop to inflate their egos. That familiar blaze ignited inside her. Very well, sir, she said, placing her cleaning items aside, if you insist. The luxurious chess set shimmered under the crystal lights as Dolly settled opposite Marcus. The weighty, chilly pieces felt alien compared to the battered plastic ones on which she had first discovered her passion. Still, chess remained chess, ivory or injection molded. Now then, Marcus told his rapt listeners, let's start with basic opening principles. Dolly, do you know what an opening is? The moves that begin the game. She replied plainly, revealing none of the expertise simmering within. Precisely? Marcus smirked patronizingly. Excellent. Watch how a master handles the start versus, well, an untrained enthusiast, he said, waving grandly at the board. Mastery hinges on principles honed over years, pattern recognition, positional judgment, tactical alertness. You can't just absorb these by spectating. The onlookers nodded wisely, as if they too commanded such insight. Several angled for better sightlines, phones poised to record the anticipated swift rout. Ladies first? Marcus offered with mock gallantry, granting Dolly the white pieces. Dolly advanced her king's pawn 2 spaces to e4, a timeless choice. Marcus pounced on the teaching moment. Ah, the simplest opening. King's pawn to e4. So predictable. Observe everyone, he said, pushing his pawn to e5. Novices cling to the obvious. They lack the refinement for modern opening nuances. Dolly calmly brought her knight to f3, eyeing his pawn. Standard, sturdy, exactly what the crowd anticipated from her presumed skill level. Marcus answered with knight to c6, then delivered another brief sermon. See how I develop with tempo, securing the center while setting up richer strategies. That's the divide between making moves and comprehending chess. The opening unfolded like a textbook. Dolly played bishop to b5, the Ruy Lopez. Classic, familiar, the sort any rookie might blunder into. Oh my! Marcus laughed. She's stumbled into the Ruy Lopez. Charming. Of course, memorizing a few moves is worlds apart from grasping its strategic depths. Yet a faint unease gnawed at Marcus as play continued. Dolly's choices, though plain, were flawlessly sound, not merely viable, optimal. Her development flowed naturally, her pawns stayed solid, and she committed 0 errors. Beginner's fortune, he assured himself. Early moves in most lines are straightforward. The true trial would emerge in the middle game, when tactics flared and position mattered most. Notice her stiffness, he murmured to nearby watchers. She's clueless about the storm ahead. Had he observed closer, he might have realized her tension stemmed from restraint, not fear. By move 15, Marcus's smug narration had morphed from playful to perplexed. Each of Dolly's plays was not only correct but reflected profound positional mastery. Curious, he muttered, scrutinizing the board more intently than planned. She's avoiding the blunders I predicted. The audience detected the shift in his demeanor. His earlier breeziness gave way to focus. Spectators leaned in, puzzled by the unfolding drama. Dolly castled kingside with calm precision. The timing was ideal, neither premature nor delayed. Her rook activated along the f-file, and abruptly Marcus saw his own king less safe than he'd believed. That's actually solid. He conceded grudgingly, then backpedaled. Naturally, even a stopped clock is right twice daily. Beginner's luck can yield decent moves, but it doesn't account for 15 straight strong ones. Marcus now calculated lines he never expected to need. This was meant to be a 5-minute crush, not a contest. Dolly's next play froze him bishop to d6. Suddenly, he spotted the snare he'd strolled into. Capturing her bishop on g4, as intended, would allow her knight fork, hitting king and queen. How had she foreseen that 3-ply earlier? Ahem. Marcus cleared his throat, feigning deliberation while his thoughts raced. Against lesser foes, one must never overlook tactical chances. The crowd grew fidgety. They had come for laughs, not a duel. Members exchanged baffled whispers at the prolonged exhibition. "I see struggling," one woman hissed to her spouse. Marcus caught the remark. Heat flushed his face. This was supposed to crown his supremacy. Instead, he battled earnestly against a janitor who shouldn't know a fork from a spoon. Dolly sat serene, betraying no triumph. She was merely playing superb chess. Devastatingly superb. She must have studied. Marcus mumbled, mostly to himself. Probably watched matches here, absorbed scraps. Yet inwardly he grasped this wasn't mimicry or flukes. This was authentic chess intuition, impossible to fake. When Dolly's following move planted a subtle pawn flaw in his camp. Imperceptible to most, yet enduring and corrosive. Marcus finally understood. He wasn't facing a cleaner who dabbled in chess. He faced a master. The room plunged into silence. Light diversion had morphed into an authentic clash. Marcus stared at the board, sweat beading as the gravity sank in. Dolly had outmaneuvered him methodically for 10 moves. The position now teetered on crisis. Every placement served layered aims. Every pawn advance concealed threats. This wasn't chance or imitation. This was artistry. She's remarkably skilled for someone who merely knows the rules, whispered Dr. Patterson, the club's top player. Marcus looks worried. Worried was an understatement. Marcus fought for survival. The woman opposite had unveiled staggering depth, comprehending chess at his own elite tier. The climax arrived when Dolly raised her queen. Marcus held his breath, hoping she'd miss the lethal sequence lurking. No amateur could unearth something so intricate. Dolly slid queen to x2. Check. The move struck like lightning. Marcus's king was attacked, but worse. He saw the full combination cascade like a nightmare. King to f1 allowed knight to h1 check, then mate. Blocking with the knight let her capture it and mate in 3 anyway. No, he breathed, scanning frantically. She can't have. But she had. The line was impeccable, inexorable, brilliant. Marcus had marched into a mating web so refined even he missed it until trapped. Onlookers began to grasp. Dr. Patterson's mouth fell open as he followed the forced path. That's actually genius, he stammered. She's forced mate. Marcus tried a final desperate king to g1, but Dolly's reply was instant and ruthless. Knight to h1 check, forcing king to g2, then queen to g1 check, driving it back. When the storm cleared, she would snag his queen with check and leave him hopeless. "I resign," Marcus whispered, voice barely audible. The words lingered like haze. No one stirred. No one spoke. Their vaunted Grandmaster, emblem of cerebral superiority, had been utterly vanquished by the woman they hired to mop their floors. Dolly extended her hand across the board. "Good game," she said plainly. As Marcus clasped it, cheeks aflame with shame and bewilderment, one question looped in his head. Who was this woman? Where had she mastered chess at this level? How had he been so catastrophically mistaken about everything? The hush was absolute. Their worldview had been flipped by a soft-spoken figure in a plain shirt who grasped chess more profoundly than any of them ever would. The quiet dragged until Dr. Patterson finally spoke. "That was phenomenal chess. Where on earth did you learn to play like that?" Dolly rose unhurriedly, composure intact despite the earthquake she'd triggered. "I've always adored the game," she answered simply. "My grandmother taught me as a child." "But that combination," Marcus stammered, still reeling. "The way you constructed the position, that's master-level insight." For the first time that night, Dolly's face eased. "Chess isn't about wealth, prestige, or exclusive clubs," she said softly. "It's about the game's sheer elegance. The harmony of pieces, the graceful answers buried in tangled positions." She swept a hand around the lavish hall. "I work here because I love proximity to chess, even if I detest what this place stands for. You've all corrupted something pure into a weapon for feeling above others." Marcus felt her words land like stones. Every snide remark he'd uttered, every dismissal of unworthy players, every instance he'd wielded skill to belittle rather than uplift, it all crashed back. "I thought chess was about proving you're superior," he confessed, voice small. "But watching you, you weren't trying to humiliate me. You just played beautifully." Dolly nodded. "Chess teaches humility if we allow it. Every match offers a lesson, no matter the opponent." The crowd stood stunned, assumptions in ruins. Some appeared chastened, others simply dazed. "Maybe," Marcus said quietly, "you could show me the true heart of chess sometime." Says conclusion. Dolly smiled. Her first of the evening. "I'd enjoy that," she replied. We're never too old to grow." Tales like Dolly's remind us that brilliance and insight often lurk in the least likely corners. Next time you encounter a stranger, consider you might stand before a virtuoso whose gifts you've overlooked. What lesson did this story drive home about snap judgments? Has anyone ever surprised you after you underestimated them? Drop your reflections in the comments and tell us where you're tuning in from. If narratives like this spur you to see past surfaces and discover the remarkable in the everyday, hit subscribe for more stories that reshape our perspectives. Sometimes the deepest wisdom speaks in the softest tones.